I would like to expand on a point that you had mentioned earlier, that ports can be efficient, but that's of no use if the connection to and from the port is not efficient, whether by rail, but also by road to the nearby consumption areas. And further, you also mentioned on the dedicated freight corridor, let's say you have stations every 50 kilometers or even every 100 kilometers. At each station, you're creating an individual logistics ecosystem, if you will. Yeah, you mentioned, you said a radius from a station of 200 kilometers to cargo owners, cargo shippers, cargo consumers. And in these instances, the quality of the connectivity from those rail stations to the cargo owners and cargo consumers becomes critical. And that means local roads. How do we ensure that government, but also industry, you said a lot of investment can come from industry itself. How can we ensure that these roads are conducive to the overall logistics system?
Thanks a lot, Paul, for attributing the start of the issues relating to multimodal connectivity to me. When we talk about logistics efficiency, it is the chain which needs to be efficient. We started with the port, and when we were talking about it, we came to the rail. Why we talked about the rail at that time? Because the dedicated freight corridor links to the ports. So we were trying to add to the efficiency of that supply chain. And when we talked about a dedicated freight corridor, suddenly we found, when we talked about the nodes, the 50-kilometer nodes or the 100-kilometer nodes, we suddenly found, hey, then where will the cargo go? And therefore, for any of these cargo, the last mile will always be a truck operator. Now, there's no doubt about it, and the system needs to be integrated. The word used is integrated with the dedicated freight corridor system. But unfortunately, it is very nice to talk about integration, but a shipping ecosystem will be a shipping ecosystem, rail ecosystem will be a rail ecosystem, and the truck ecosystem will be a truck ecosystem. The problem comes at the interfaces, and that's where the issue lies. For example, I'll give you where policy changes are required, or maybe I would call it mindset changes itself. When we talk about ports, the port fellow says that the rail fellow should be outside my area. Although the land has been acquired for the port along with the railway ecosystem. They don't talk about it integratedly. Is it a mindset problem? My answer is yes, it's a mindset problem. In this country, a whole lot of things revolve around property, not about the use of property. Whereas when we talk about efficiencies, we are talking about the use of property, not its ownerships. Whereas people at the helm in various ecosystems are the owners of the property. So they talk about my ownership rather than by its use. Whereas we being outside the system, we are talking about its use. Therein lies our mindset ecosystem not understanding theirs. But the fact remains that we need to address the interfaces. The first issue, as I told you, is even when you talk about dedicated freight corridor, all of us would have acquired land around stations to provide for the trucks. But truckers will be told, please buy land outside. So you have to have one more integrated mechanism between the rail and the truck. Whereas what we should be doing is every dedicated freight corridor must have a pay and use truck terminal. But the truck terminal must be part of it. You cannot say that my truck terminal will be opened outside. Just like you have a taxi stand, you should have a truck stand. The person should be saying, okay, I get my truck and I will unload and I pay by use. When we can do that in an airport, we can do that for trucks also. Today, when we talk about Terminal 1, Terminal 2, Terminal 3, we are now trying to lease out each one of the terminals and creating self-competition.
Yeah.
We can have multiple truck terminals, but it should be part of this. And people may be paying rent on it, and I'm not telling do it free. You may say the first 1 hour is free. As you know, even in the airports, an international flight immediately takes off within 3 hours. Why they take off within 3 hours? The answer is simple. If they stay in the terminal beyond 3 hours, they need to pay parking charges. So we need to have that system of parking charges, because unless and until you invite the truck fellows, they are not there. Now there is an important question which is basically related to psychology as to why I am going in for truck and not for train. Now I can ring up a truck operator and ask him everything. Can I do that with a rail operator? Nobody will pick up the phone. And I need to go there. So the business ecosystem needs to change. So if you are going to say that I have to talk to a booking clerk of a railway office, to whom I have to meet him in my office, that business is not going to run.
Yeah.
So you will have to decentralize infrastructure facility from the business ecosystem, even in the dedicated freight corridor. I cannot be made to go to a booking clerk and book my luggage. I should be able to do it from the comforts of my home. Somebody will come home, pick up my truck, who will be a truck operator, and give me a receipt, and then go ahead. The third important thing is multimodal receipt. Shipping fellow does not want to give multimodal receipt. Rail fellow does not want to give multimodal receipt. Only the truck operator is willing to do it because he is at the first and the last mile. But intermediate fellows are not willing to do it. And dedicated freight corridor will have to be ready to accept a multimodal bill. I will tell you a huge advantage of it. Once you have a multimodal transport receipt, all your taxation issues are addressed. Your multiple insurances are addressed. So whether you need to make a claim against the rail, you need to make a claim in respect of the originator of the bill, and it is for him to settle it. If it is done in the railway, whether it claims or not, the insurance company will take care of it. I and you are powerless against the mighty institution of the railways, not the insurance companies. You need to create a power parity even in the business ecosystem. If you pick the consumer a single packet sender and tell him that you go and claim against the railways, there is nobody to even receive me and hear me. But when that is done by an insurance company, every major operator is careful. And the same thing goes for a small truck operator as well. When the insurance company goes and makes a claim against the railways or a shipping port authority or a shipping company, people will look up. Because tomorrow if the insurance company says that all their cargo should not be insured, they are out of business anyway. The power of democracy is in power parity. And that is not different even from institutions. Institutions also, we need to create such institutional and business ecosystems which enables a person of the like power to challenge the others, because otherwise I am at their mercy of the bigger fellow. Yeah. The last point which I would like to say is truck operations in India are getting efficient by the day. They are cutting into the railway margins at the rate of 1% every year by 1%. 2 to 3 years back, it was effectively held at around 25%. I dare say it could have been lower. Now, the reason being, people want to be in a business ecosystem in which they can access and they can have redress in case something happens. Not that something is happening in the railways. I'm not having any insinuations against the manner in which the cargo is transported. But should there be a problem, the person at lower end can have little redress. And even if he has redress, it is so costly that it is as good as lost. And these are some of the things which we need to address. And building the truck operators. Believe me, the Truck Operators Association is possibly one of the most powerful in this country, but not willing to throw its weight. And I have already told you, ITWA controls almost 80% of the truck transport in this country, but very few people have heard about them. And they are willing to do it. They did it in COVID, as you're all aware. The prices of transporting cargo did not increase during COVID at all in this country. It increased in several countries. That's because a fiat went out from ITWA, that no price shall be increased without our permission. That was a great gesture. All what I'm trying to suggest is that institutions like Dedicated Freight Corridor should build the ecosystem. They are willing to do it competitively. They are an association. They are not asking free for themselves. You can create some sort of a parking facility inside the Dedicated Freight Corridor by which right from as soon as the train comes, somebody comes, removes it, immediately pushes in the next port, and the train is ready to go in half an hour. It's possible. Just imagine the employment. And that's an exciting prospect, Paul, which we need to address. Mind you, we just don't need to think that we are going to create employment for the educated. 80% of the population are got ordinary skills, and which is a universal phenomenon. We need to provide for the masses employment at the local level, and that's my point going forward.